Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Timberwolves fought hard in the first quarter, but can't make a shot against OKC's smothering defense. Also, are the Thunder just cruising to the NBA Finals now that they're up 2-0? Plus, the Browns need to start Shedeur Sanders now.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Minnesota Timberwolves had to get a win in Game 2 to not go back to Minneapolis down 0-2. And Anthony Edwards came out with force. He's explosive. He scored 30-plus in this game. It still was not enough. Oklahoma City will take that 2-0 lead back to Minneapolis. 118-103, the final in Game 2. Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves joins me now. And Ben, this was a game that you really feel like you need to bring the sense of urgency. We saw that in the first quarter, and then it felt like the Thunder just suffocated this Wolves team once again.
Yeah, we saw the urgency in the first quarter. We saw it in the fourth quarter where they were down 24 at one point, late third, early fourth. They got it down to 10 points, the deficit in the fourth. But in between, it was nowhere to be found. And that was, once again, the close to the first half, which we saw in Game 1. It was a close game in the closing minutes of the second quarter. The Wolves had a terrible close to the half. They found themselves down, I think, 8 at halftime. And then the third quarter, OKC ran away with it, just like what happened in Game 1. It was a lot of the same stuff. I mean, I said after Game 1, hey, the Wolves aren't going to shoot, when they shoot 29% from three. They're not going to do that very often. Well, they shot 28% from three in this game. So a lot of similarities to the Game 1 loss.
Yeah. And we talked going into the game, hey, look, the shooting is going to be something that is going to be variable week to week, game to game. And the Timberwolves shot and made a lot of threes in the regular season. Would they have counters? Well, Julius Randle is supposed to be part of the help there. He goes 2 for 11 in this game, just 6 points. It was up to Jaden McDaniels to have to pick up the scoring load. That's not going to work in this series.
No, and I think Jaden, this side of Randall and Ant, I think that Jaden McDaniels kind of has to be that next guy. It's either him or Naz Reid, and I think Jaden has shown that in the playoffs. But to your point on Randall, like, this was just a bad Julius Randle game. He didn't even see the floor in the fourth quarter. He played, I think, 32 of the first 36 minutes and did not play in the fourth quarter. And I understand why. Like, the Wolves and Rudy Gobert didn't play much in the fourth quarter because the Wolves needed offense, and they just went small to kind of match what OKC was doing, which is obviously dangerous. But at that point, what choice do you have? And Randall just didn't look comfortable. And I don't necessarily think it was like early in the season, he was struggling in a Wolves uniform after the trade early on. He wasn't making the right decisions. He just wasn't comfortable being kind of the second option next to Ant. I don't think that was it in this game. I don't necessarily think he was making too many bad decisions. There were a couple pretty bad passes mixed in there, but the shots he was taking weren't bad. He just missed some bunnies at the rim. He missed a couple of open threes. The rhythm just seemed off. And so I understand why Chris Finch didn't put him in the game in the fourth quarter. But yeah, if Julius Randle is going to score 6 points on 11 shots, it's going to be tough to score efficiently if you're Minnesota. And that combined with 3-point shooting issues once again, and as the Thunder went on the run, the Wolves turned the ball over too many times to fuel that OKC run. It's not a recipe for success.
The free throws, once again, a part of this game. Shea takes 15, but it was a terrific Oklahoma City 3-point shooting in Game 1 that helped them blow that game open. They only shoot 27% from 3, 9 of 33 in this game, and they still make it to 118. Where are the answers defensively for Minnesota, if there are any?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that damage that OKC did was obviously in the paint. When Minnesota went zone, which they didn't do a whole lot of in the regular season. In fact, like half of their zone possessions in the regular season came against OKC across 4 games. They're not great at zone. And so they got a couple stops, but then they were giving up offensive rebounds out of the zone, which led to open second chance opportunities for OKC. And the point of attack defense wasn't physical enough. And the big difference between OKC right now and Minnesota, one of the big differences is how physical they are essentially in the backcourt across the timeline, 30 feet from the basket. They're in your jersey. They're being physical. They're daring the officials to call the fouls. Minnesota actually ended up attempting more free throws in this game than OKC because the Thunder got into the penalties so quickly in the fourth quarter because of how physical they are defensively. So, but like, if you're a Wolves fan, like, at some point, that's what you want to see Minnesota do, is be physical enough on the perimeter that, you're forcing the issue, you're forcing the officials to call something. Minnesota didn't do that until they played small in the fourth quarter. They were down 20 plus and they kind of had no other choice. The Wolves just have to be more physical on the perimeter. They need to do a better job of jumping in the gaps and essentially showing SGA the same looks that OKC's showing Ant. And ultimately, Edwards, to your point earlier, had a pretty good game, but the Wolves allowed SGA to get to his 38 points far too easily in this one.
You can stay up to date all year on the Minnesota Timberwolves by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Wolves on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, should we go ahead and just pencil the Thunder into the finals? Before we get to that, one of baseball's best is returning from injury. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Ronald Acuna Jr. is back. After nearly a full season on the shelf recovering from a torn ACL, the 2023 NL MVP is set to make his long-awaited return to the Atlanta Braves lineup tonight against the Padres. Acuna looked sharp during his rehab stint in the minors, and if his past comebacks are any indication, Atlanta could be getting vintage Ronald back right when they need it. And the Panthers blanked the Hurricanes on the road to take a 2-0 lead in the East Finals.
It's a dominant performance for the Cats in Raleigh. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Here to quickly break down the Panthers' 5-0 win over the Carolina Hurricanes, where it was the second line setting the tone and frustrating the top line for the Canes, where Andrei Svechnikov committed 2 turnovers that ended up in the back of the net and then committing a penalty that resulted in the Panthers converting on the power play. The Panthers had to manage losing Sam Reinhart at the end of the first period and also led the shot advantage once again, 11-4 in the second period, 17 shots against in the entire game. They added on another power play goal in the third period. The Panthers set a record with 43 goals in 9 road playoff games. And Sergei Bobrovsky, it's May 22nd, and 3 years in a row on May 22nd, Bob gets a shutout. We're going to break all this down and more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
The Guardians shut out the AL Central leading Tigers.
That is more like Cleveland Guardians baseball. The Guardians once again had to battle the elements, but so did the Tigers. But the Guardians came out victorious, looking like the 2024 Cleveland Guardians a little bit. This is Justin Latta from Locked On Guardians. It started with starting pitching. Tanner Bybee was the best he's been all year. Through his entire pitch mix, located down in the zone, made that adjustment in this start, was good from start to finish, went 7 innings, and the Guardians really needed that. They needed the starting pitching to get on a roll. And the final score is going to say that it was 7-0, but this is a close game throughout, and the Tigers had the bases loaded late in the game, and Cade Smith came in, struck out the side. He's had some hiccups lately, especially over in Minnesota the other game. So really important for Bybee to look good. Cade Smith coming in and striking 3 straight out with the bases loaded in the 3-0 game. The Guardians added on late, so they didn't have to go to Emmanuel Clase in that game as well, or Hunter Gaddis, which sets them off really good for Friday's match against the Tigers. This is a big series for the Guardians. There's no such thing as a must-win series in May, but the Tigers are playing good baseball. The Guardians needed to get back to it if they wanted to stay within striking distance as we round the corner into that Memorial Day checkpoint in Major League Baseball, and the Guardians did just that, got themselves off on the right foot in this Tigers series. Listen to Locked On Guardians on Friday for more.
The Astros throttled the Mariners
After those last few games against the Rays, Astros fans must have been a little confused. What's going on here? What type of team do we have? My name is Eric Heisman from the Locked On Astros podcast, and the offense came out, 9-2 victory. Jose Altuve had 2 home runs. This was the first home run he had since April 28th. Lance McCullers pitched into the 5th inning, had 8 strikeouts, and overall you had a lot more offense throughout the day. And the hottest hitter for the Houston Astros, Paredes, he did not even get hit in today's game. So it was a very spread out offense, and most of it at the bottom of the order, and Jose Altuve. So we'll talk about that on tonight's Locked On Astros podcast.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder carved up the Timberwolves in Game 2. Locked On Thunder host Rylan Stiles recapped a dominant performance from the newly minted league MVP.
This was a situation where Minnesota, in the first game of this series, of course, losing it, but you still felt like, okay, you can still do your job here in game number 2 and get a split, head back home and feel good about yourself. And instead, like in the third quarter, this Minnesota team was outright dejected. They were outright deflated. Their body language was terrible. And if they just didn't let go of the rope completely in that third quarter, you point to that fourth quarter run and say what could have been if you just didn't let down in that third frame. Because Minnesota, really, for as great as Oklahoma City was playing, like they competed hard for 40 minutes of this game, but those 8 minutes in the third quarter really crushed them. And, you look back on that, if you're Minnesota, as a missed opportunity, because we don't know what would have happened had you not gotten yourself in that big of a hole, but you got yourself in that big of a hole because of the suffocating defense of Oklahoma City. We're going to talk about the Thunder's big 3, which I think showed up in a big way. I think that, it's a small sample size. They've only played in, 5 postseason rounds together so far, but this was the most cohesive, meaningful game that the big 3 have ever played together with SGA, J-Dub, and Chet. It's all starting on the defensive end. I mean, to hold Minnesota to 28% from 3 again, because you're spoon-feeding them shots that you want to live with, and you don't allow them to get consistent enough offense. I'm very interested to see what the second spectrum numbers say about Minnesota's open 3-point shots. But from the eye test, it looked like in the first half, Minnesota was able to do a concerted effort of running flare screens, getting guys curling off screens into the corner, getting comfortable shots. But that was not a consistent approach for that Timberwolves offense. A lot of these shots were quote unquote open, but they were in scenarios that they're uncomfortable with, and that led to a lot of misses from beyond the arc. And both teams lost in the sense of the 3-point battle. Both teams, neither one of them shot well. 28% from Minnesota, 27% from OKC, but the difference was the command in the paint from the Thunder. And Minnesota got that. Like they got that column tighter, and that's what's so deflating for the Timberwolves is that their defense just was not there, and the Thunder made them pay. Like you cannot employ Rudy Gobert and get torn up like this at the rim and relinquish the spots in the mid-range that the Thunder love to get to and get outscored in the paint, etc. Like with both teams shooting bad from 3, you would hope that you'd have the better rim deterrent to shut that off as well, or at least slow it down to the extent that you did not. The Thunder shot 27% from 3 tonight, and they made 50% of their shot attempts. Like they made 50% of their attempts from the floor. That's just wildly impressive, as is their defense, which if you're Minnesota, what's so discouraging is, both teams shot bad from 3. You only had 14 turnovers, which, yes, you don't want double-digit turnovers, but comparatively speaking to what the Thunder defense is able to do, 14 is a number that you take, especially compared to the Thunder 6. You lost the rebounding battle by 1, and yet this was a game that felt in hand for the final, quarter and a half for Oklahoma City. And so it's like, what's the recourse from here? Well, the recourse is simply throwing your hands up and saying, well, if you hit your open 3s, you'll be able to find success. But, Anthony Edwards went 1 for 9. You would expect that to be better. Mike Conley was 1 for 4. And then you had the 0 for 5 from Naz Reid. And you hope that all those things would turn around and thus change the game. But how many times is that going to happen in what's left of this series? Can you now rattle off 4 wins from just that method before the Thunder can get 2? It's insanely unlikely right now, but a lot of this can be boiled down to the frustration that the Thunder place on teams because of their ability to have these avalanche-like runs with their defense, with again, dejecting you. By the way, they can turn you over, force you into bad shots, bat around rebounds to where even if you're the bigger team and the stronger team and the more imposing team down low, the way that these little guards and forwards from the Thunder race in there and bat the ball out of your hands is dejecting from what should have been, a better situation, should have been a second chance opportunity for your club. Instead, it's a fast break opportunity for Oklahoma City, and it's a transitional opportunity for Oklahoma City, which again, the Thunder dominate in the fast break, and the Thunder actually win second chance points, and they win points in the paint, and they shoot at a better percentage, and they turn the ball over less, and they out-rebound you more. They out-rebound you by more, and the Thunder get a 118 to 103 win. They did everything right, and the Thunder also had their top 3 guys show up, and Minnesota did not.
Stay up to date all year on the Oklahoma City Thunder by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Thunder on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Browns need to start Shedeur Sanders now. The Browns quarterback room might be the strangest collection of signal callers we've seen in a while. Joe Flacco is the projected starter, but Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland believes that Cleveland shouldn't be starting anyone other than Shedeur.
You need to get on that right now. Like we talked about Dillon Gabriel. I said it after the draft. I still believe it now. The Browns coach and general manager overdrafted Dillon Gabriel as a way to say we can't draft Shedeur Sanders because they were scared that they were going to lose their job. As I said the last time we talked about this, I think they were scared of Dion taking that job. So that's really the start of the fear for these general managers, not social media and the attention they'll get. It's losing their job. That's what really motivates people, Ross, is they don't want to lose their money. Like that is, so 100%. If you want to find motivation, go to the bank account or go to the heart. Okay. Those are the 2 places you go. But for me, there's no way you can look at Dillon Gabriel, like you said, that's a Prius. That's a Pinto. We talk about Shedeur Sanders maybe not having great athletic gifts. Dillon Gabriel is even less than that. He's even smaller to the point there are beat reporters for the Browns like, I'm taller than him.
I'm taller than him.
Bad on you for doing that. Right. That was a bit performative in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a bit much.
But regardless of that, I just think we can't play this game any longer. Let's not be dumb. If they had a good veteran quarterback that made sense, even I would understand. But Flacco, we saw, is not the 11-5 Flacco that the Browns had a couple years ago. They need to get Shedeur Sanders going, and at minimum, find out that he is truly not as good as people think. And then you can move on from the quote unquote circus or whatever you want. But I think that the Browns have backed themselves into a good thing, and them denying it and trying to push it as far away from them as possible is so classic Browns. You have a gift. You were given a gift and you don't even want to unwrap it. They're just, it's just mind boggling to me that somehow, some way I'm agreeing with the Browns owner. And that should just probably never be a thing. But him making them draft Shedeur Sanders, if that's what happened, was the right move.
The biggest problem with this is Shedeur Sanders is going to have to be clearly better. I mean, clearly better than everyone else to get the start. Because for as cool as the player empowerment of name, image, and likeness is, and for as great as it is that players can benefit from the marketing machines in college, and they can make money playing sports that makes everyone else around the game money, the coaches, the schools, the networks. You come to the NFL with the flash, the pomp, the circumstance, the swagger, the legendary branding, and the players in the NFL, the guys who've already proven themselves in the league, the guys who are fighting to make rosters, who aren't wearing diamond encrusted watches on the sidelines during games. Those guys are going to look at Shedeur Sanders and go, I'm supposed to care about this guy? I'm supposed to be led by this guy? He's going to have to prove it on the field, and he's going to have to be better than Joe Flacco, who is another player who has proved it on the field. Now he's getting old and has been retired or semi-retired like each of the last 2 seasons. But this Browns team does need a shot in the arm at quarterback. They need Shedeur Sanders to be good, or one of these guys, Dylan Gabriel. But I'm telling you, Shedeur is going to have to really win that job to win that job. He can't kind of win the job to win the job. He can't just be a little better than everyone else. He's going to have to prove it on, off the field, locker room, everywhere. I'm not sure there is a quarterback who I think is the most talented quarterback on his roster who's going to have a tougher time winning his starting job than Shedeur Sanders this season. And finally, John Pock may have lost sleep over the Knicks' collapse, but the lifelong New York fan made the most of it in Texas. Fueled by frustration from New York's Game 1 meltdown, the PGA Tour rookie fired a career-best 63 at Colonial to grab the first-round lead at the Charles Schwab Challenge. Sometimes heartbreak is the best motivator. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can Jalen Brunson and the Knicks respond after their Game 1 meltdown? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.